everybody. We are here today with Brandy of Brandy Burrow Astrology. She's back. And we are going to be talking about JFK's assassination. The reason for this is, we recently did one of these forensic astrology videos on Marilyn Monroe. And we were looking at the charts and the Kennedy brothers, both JFK and RFK were tied to Marilyn Monroe. And so we were looking at the charts for when JFK was shot and when RFK was shot, and noticed that they both had Aquarius risings in these charts. And Marilyn Monroe's last time seen, there's also an Aquarius rising in that chart. And there were just some echoes of things. So we were like, we should take a look at this and see, what's up with it. So if anybody's wondering why we're doing this one now, that's why. It does kind of tie into the other one a little bit. But
same decade, same chart lineup. It's kind of crazy.
It is. It is very interesting. It is very interesting. But for we won't go too much into this because I think everybody is aware of him being assassinated, but he was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963 in Dallas, Texas at 12:30 p.m. That's what they have. And then he was declared dead at 1 p.m. that same day. So really these charts, there's not much difference between the two. So we'll be focusing most on the chart when he was shot, but we will take a look at the other two. Should I go ahead and pull it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. Share content. It's kind of, my iPad is strange. Hold up. I really hope this is the right one.
Well, we'll discuss any chart.
Oh, that is not the right one. God damn it. Hold on. Son of a bitch. Hold on. Let's see. There we go. There's the right one.
Not yay, because this is when he's shot, but yay, we have the right chart.
Well, what stands out first?
Well, that Saturn moon conjunction right on the ascendant, which Saturn happens to also be, and the moon, the chart rulers for representing JFK, the victim here. So wow, right there in the 12th house, creeping up on the ascendant. That's the first thing that pops out at me.
Absolutely. Because it can also point to that could be like a deathy thing, a deathy.
Very deathy. Yeah. You get 12th house activity, 8th house or 4th house, you get the death markers. This is, and Saturn itself, in these type of charts, it's very deathy too, and the body. So yeah, it's just right there.
It is. Now, in these, I've made mention before that I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, a little bit. I try not to go too crazy with it, but a little bit. And this this particular assassination, I kind of feel like is it really a conspiracy at this point? I mean, there's clearly funky shit with him being killed. You know what I mean?
There was a lot going on during this time, a lot going on with that family.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm the same. I'm not a big conspiracy person. But in this situation, I think it's definitely valid to look at some of the different theories of his death.
Yeah. And I bring this up because, the perpetrator right in these charts is the seventh house, or also the motive, could be, I feel like could be found in the seventh house as well. And you have the seventh house with Leo on the cusp. And then you've got that sun. We were talking about this, that sun right on the, within 4 degrees of the midheaven in the ninth house. To me, the motive here feels like international affairs or foreign, something foreign related.
A foreign power of some sort. Yes, That's exactly my thoughts when I see the seventh house ruler, which is a perpetrator, or party responsible, being represented by the sun, which is kind of like powerful leader, some kind of government type stuff, in the ninth house of foreign affairs.
And I want to say, this also feels like, because like, you know, I mean, like, you know, I know the sun is in the ninth, right? But it is close to the midheaven. And the 10th house can, you know, tie into kind of things like government, like you said. But what I do think is interesting here is we have that sun, it's in Scorpio. So there is more of a hidden quality to it, right? This feels like this was ordered by someone up on high.
Yeah.
That
secretive.
Yes. And perhaps somebody that perhaps while they're up on high, they're not really known, or do things kind of in the shadows.
Yeah. And, you know, with the sun being in Scorpio, I wouldn't say this about every crime chart, but I think it definitely applies here, you know, being how many years later? 60 years this year.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, 60 years later, kind of knowing how things are playing out, that sun being in a sign of Scorpio makes me think, yeah, the killer or party responsible for killing will always be hidden, or there'll never be matter of fact proof here. Or
another thing also about that is that those Pluto and Uranus in the 7th house intercepted in Virgo. There's also like a sense of not of a hiddenness to that too, like yeah.
And we were talking about this, like having two of those planets, you know, Uranus and Pluto, powerful planets.
Yes.
Especially when they're teaming up together, like they are in the sign of Virgo in this chart. And like Uranus is very unexpected, very unpredictable. I think Pluto can kind of be the same way. Yeah, Pluto's more calculated, but it can come up and bubble up out of surprise sometimes.
Oh yeah, they're both like agents of chaos in different ways.
Exactly. Being in a sign of Virgo that's so cautious and planned and, you know, detailed. Yeah, this is weird to me, sitting in that 7th house. Like, I don't feel like I just feel like this is heavily premeditated, not just, oh, the president's going to be in Dallas this day. Let's, you know, here's an opportunity. This is something very calculated.
Let me ask, because this is something that I forgot to look up. Do you know if did he have any feelings that he was going to eventually be taken out like this? And I ask because I know, like, in these charts you generally want to look at the traditional rulership, but it does seem interesting to me that, you know, Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. It's right there too. So I almost wonder if he ever, I don't know, had any kind of a sense that this could happen.
I'm just looking it up because very interesting point. I don't know. But when I put JFK and premonitions, all sorts of titles pop up that say JFK predicted his own assassination.
Okay.
Apparently to his wife, Jackie.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it looks like they're documented conversations. I'll just put that out there. So yeah. Looks like that's the case.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I'm like, that just kind of hit me on the, as I'm looking like, yeah, that seems
extremely observant, Ellie. That's tough.
I also want to mention, and this particular part, I don't completely know how to, well, okay, because they're generational, right? Like Uranus is generational, Pluto is generational, right? There is this feeling that I have here with these two generational planets being in the 7th house, that in this context, we're not talking about people, we're almost talking about groups. Because of the generational aspect. That's another way that my mind goes. It almost makes me think, if you were to not think of Uranus as him necessarily, but like as both of these as being groups that were involved in this,
Sure.
like two separate ones.
And Uranus is a modern ruler of groups and, 11th house.
Yes.
Stuff. Right. Yeah.
Yes. But just like the generational influence of, these planets makes me think less of like specific people and more of like two groups coming together to make this happen.
Right. So a couple parties being in cahoots together, right? Like maybe, I'm just putting this out here, maybe a foreign country and a home country coming together, or is that an example of how?
Sure. Or I'll just, I'm thinking of one of the alphabets here in the US that perhaps isn't supposed to operate on American soil.
Okay.
I think we all know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which could bring in the foreign element. And I haven't actually reviewed these documents myself, but something came out where I've heard that it's kind of been said that they kind of revealed that they did do it, but I don't quote me on that because I haven't read it myself, but they kind of bring their involvement up or something. So yeah, or something from, a other country altogether. Absolutely possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I would say, yeah, Pluto and Uranus generational, but being together in the 7th house on this chart, being seated, essentially intercepted, I definitely stands out and definitely significant here.
Yes. What about let me see. Oh, okay. Something I noticed, like the public nature of his death, right? We've got the 8th house ruler in the 10th. It's very, that feels very public, like which I thought was interesting. Was there anything that you
this chart is just so literal.
it is
in so many ways. You got that Mercury in the 10th house. They were in a car, and you get Mercury when you're in a car in these kind of charts, these kinds of charts, I mean. And so, Mercury being right there in the 10th, being out in front of everybody. And then even with Venus and Mars right there by Mercury, we're actually getting details about the type of wounds he received, being head and throat, not to get too graphic, but you got Mars rolling the head, Venus rolling the throat. And it's just so, yeah, this chart just paints a perfect picture of what was going on at the time this happens.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. It's kind of almost creepy. Sometimes not like in a bat, but that kind of feeling where it's like you get kind of goosebumps and it's like, oh yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me see. I took some little notes. I want to make sure I touched on everything. Oh, even another thing with we have Gemini on the cusp of the 4th. With that Mercury being in the 10th, that's another indicator of like public shit, like it being taking place in public. Yeah. So lots of markers for like public death here.
Even going into that 4th house in Gemini, being in a double-bodied sign like Gemini, like, and we know from history, of course, but it's like this isn't over. There's going to be multiple deaths here, with Gemini being there, which, we could take this all sorts of directions. We could take this, Lee Harvey Oswald being shot just a few days later, his brother about 4.5 years later. Like, yeah. It's weird.
And we're going to talk about his brother later, but there are definitely interesting things in that chart that I remember taking notes on, where it was like, there was definitely some tie to his family, as to like very clearly there was a tie to the family, why he was killed. So that's, yes, it's not over. The story continues. Kind of thing.
Continues. You know, another little tidbit here, Venus right there in that 10th house, you know, he was right by Jackie. I think that's also just, you know, hey, here's my partner, you know, the relationship aspect coming in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, just telling the whole story there.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Should we show the death? I mean, there's really not much difference, but I think we could show it, the death chart.
Yeah, let's look at
it. Oh, and you know what? Let me mention something just really quick. I meant to do this earlier and I forgot. Okay, on the channel, people have been trying to leave comments. Some people have said that their comments are not, they're not being seen. And I am not seeing them either. I don't know what the fuck is happening to them, but I just want to throw it out there. I am not deleting anybody's comments. I am not censoring anybody's shit. Something is going on with certain comments. I don't know what the deal is, but like some of them I straight up won't see at all. Some of them I will see and I'll like try to click on them and they won't exist. And they're gone. So I just want to throw this out there. If anybody has had this issue, leaving comments, I am looking into it, but I am not sure what's going on or why it's happening. I just want to make it known. I'm not censoring you. I'm not deleting your stuff. I really do, because I just want to throw that out there real fast.
That's crazy. Yeah. And on my channel, I think I've only deleted one comment ever because somebody was calling me a name, but
yeah.
But that's like the only time. Same here. I'm not going to delete a comment because I disagree with it or anything like that. So that's odd.
It is. I meant to say something about that earlier. Hopefully, though, anybody watching this that has had this issue will see this since it's in the middle of this video. But hopefully, but I am sorry if you're having issues having your comment seen. I am sorry, and it is something that I'm looking into trying to figure out why the hell that is.
Email us if we're not seeing it. Send it via email, maybe too. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
All right, so this is his death chart at 1 p.m.
later.
Okay. The main changes that I noticed in this chart was the ruler of the 4th house moves to the 9th, and the ruler of the 10th house moves to the 1st.
And Neptune moves to the 8th. So fogginess around the death. Yep. Yeah.
The ruler of the 10th, Jupiter, in the 1st, definitely feels like somebody in power. It kind of backs up the other thing with somebody in power, like in the other, to me anyway.
Well, you know what's interesting about this too, just kind of different here, but that ruler of the 10th, Jupiter, going into the 1st, you know, the original news broadcasts, the way they announced the death to the public, you know, the news anchors said 2 priests were with him and said he died. And so that is right around this time. And so that's kind of also shown, you know, Jupiter representing men of the cloth. And that's how the news gets out too.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I'm a big Mad Men fan. And so there's an episode where they're covering this event and they show that the real footage. And so it's kind of how I remember that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting.
That is super. And that's super literal.
Yeah.
That's super literal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but other than that, very similar chart.
Yeah, incredibly similar.
The thing is, you know, the ascendant in Aquarius goes to that anaretic degree.
It does.
9 degrees, which is pretty intense.
It is interesting though that it still manages to stay in that, you know what I mean? Because it could have, if it was just, you know, a little bit. Yeah, it is interesting that it still happens to be there though.
Yeah, and this is a time where people who were there at the scene knew it was bad, but by the time it kind of gets out nationally to everyone via the news and stuff, I would think having an anaretic degree on the ascendant makes sense for when everyone's hearing the news.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does.
Intense. It's an intense chart. You know, and when you see Scorpio towards the top of the chart, like we're seeing the sun in both of these charts. I find that when you get Scorpio towards the 10th, it's more of a ruthless energy. Like
I can see where you're going with that.
Yeah. Which, there's all sorts of ways you can do away with someone. The fact that this was so violent and, it's in front of people like this, it almost makes me think this death was to make a statement, which of course it was, but it's
to make a statement, to make an example.
Yeah. Prove a point, something like that. Like I want my, how I feel out there, and I want everyone to know how upset I am, no matter who's behind it. But like that, the intensity, they want it to be visible.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, he could have been taken out in other ways that weren't. I mean, not only was it fucking public, but it was right next to his wife.
Right.
Like it's like god damn. You know what I mean? Like
she picked up parts of him, and
yes.
like extremely brutal and ruthless. What, like last one we did was Marilyn Monroe. That was a whole different manner of death.
Yes. This one, yeah, it definitely feels like to prove a point, to make a statement, to make an example,
and to let everybody see that, like that type of violence. Like
yes,
just ruthless.
Yes, it is ruthless. Should we look at like his transits or his natal chart and his what I have it
I'd
called?
love to see the natal chart with the transits or arcs or whatever you got.
Let's see. Okay, let me make sure I pull the right one. I hope this is right. Okay, that's just his natal chart. Hold on. Damn it. Sorry, everything's like backwards on here. Okay.
Hey, you're good.
Right. Okay. So we have his natal chart is on the inside. The transits for when he was shot are on the outside.
Yeah, I would like to say he's a fellow May Gemini, like I am.
He is. And I'd also like to point out, because we were talking about this, and this motherfucker, I don't know, and I don't mean motherfucker in a bad way, but this is just like that's just how I talk.
That's our word for this guy. This motherfucker.
Yeah, pretty much. But I'm looking at his chart, his natal chart on the inside. I'm like, this guy was not a politician. Like he was, it's what he did, but he wasn't. Like I don't know.
I would say the only, I'm sorry, I have no filter here. I would say the only politician-y thing he has is the secrets.
Yeah, because I look at that and I mean, and I'm not trying to rag on the 8th house here. I'm really not. But things that are in the 8th house, there is more of a hidden quality to them, right? And yeah. I look at his chart and he's got all this fucking shit in the 8th house. And I'm thinking, this guy, he had secrets. I just wouldn't believe it if he didn't. I wouldn't buy it.
He's private.
Especially with the ruler of the 8th in the 8th. Like it all, you know what I mean? There is
and a chart ruler. His chart ruler also in the 8th. Like
yes.
No one knows this guy.
I do. Yeah. And I think to myself, somebody that wants to be in politics, which is a very, public thing. If I had secrets, I don't think that politics is what I would go into, right? But there's probably a reason. I mean, there's that now that kind of goes off into, I can go off on a little tangent about that. I'll spare everybody, but about that, but it is interesting to me.
Yeah.
I mean, even
in the mob.
It brings up some questions. Was he? That's a whole, but but that's a very fair thing to bring up. Because there were mob ties, like, there.
That's
something.
his calling right there. Like,
Uh-huh.
I mean, 8th house is like a huge stellium. We got 1, 2, 3, 5, all the inner planets. I mean, everything but the moon there, like in that 8th house. And I heard too that like he, him and his brother worked close together. His brother, Bobby Kennedy, was his attorney general. And I've heard that like he didn't even allow him to come over at night to the White House. Like it was only business. Like he even kept the brother out of some things. Like,
yeah,
it's interesting. Like,
yeah. And I will say, and we'll talk more about this in the other one about him. Now, the brother was a politician. The brother,
Bobby.
the brother, RFK was like, he was born for this one though.
And okay, this is a divisive comment. Ellie will probably fire me after I make this, but
no.
But based on popularity polls, generally Gemini sons are not great presidents. I know.
Okay.
No, I shouldn't say it. But when you say this guy's not really a politician, yeah, I agree. Gemini is not a great leadership placement.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the most recent ones that I can think of. I'm thinking, yeah. I can think of a couple within the last 20 years. I'm like, oh no, sorry. The other one I'm thinking of is not a Gemini.
No, but the daddy was.
Yeah, Creep was.
In the 80s.
The one I call Creep.
So I just want to support that comment but I will say this, he was very loved as a president, but this was in the early 60s. This is when, we don't have the media that we have today where everything is out there about what you're doing. And I would say back then the media was more respectable. If they saw something going on that was not presidential, they probably would have kept it under wraps,
Well, and you bring up a good point though. If he had been president in today's time, would he have even gone that route? I wonder, because the ability for things to be hidden now, if you've got it, no, you can't. If you've got fucking skeletons, they're gonna come out at some point.
Yeah,
they will.
I mean, these news sources now want the ratings over that stuff, not like back then where they're like, oh, we got to keep this quiet. Like it's going to be out there. So it may not have even been viable in today's age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really may not have been. Probably. Yeah. Yeah. Cause this is, that is an interesting thought though. Yeah.
And that Pluto Uranus conjunction that we're looking at now on his moon that day.
Yep.
Woo.
Which is, yes. And and somebody who's had that, in a different sign and a different house, but that Pluto moon conjunction specific, that's rough.
That's rough. And can we
talk about
that nodal opposition?
Yeah. Look at that fucking shit. That fucking shit. They're both at 11 degrees. I mean, they're like, there is, yeah.
I just thought of this. I maybe should have thought of it earlier, but it would be interesting to see what was happening to Jacqueline Kennedy at the time, later Jacqueline Onassis. What would have been going on in her chart? Because this was this was a horrible year. I mean, I believe they had a baby that died about 3 months earlier. She lost a baby. And then this happens. Like, I'm almost wondering, man, what's going on in her chart too? Like, this is just terrible time for the family.
Yes. Yeah, really. She was a Leo, right?
I think so.
Huh. Yeah, maybe at some point we'll have to look at that. Because that is very.
Did I interrupt you about the nodal opposition? I kind of like
No, that's an interesting point. I mean, yeah, because I'm sure she had some stuff going on too. Sure she had to have.
Yeah. And these nodal oppositions, like they're different for everyone. And they happen to everybody every 8-9 years ish. No,
yeah.
You get the opposition, then you get the conjunction. But People often, when these things are happening, can feel like their life is in crisis, or like just feel like life is hard, like just things don't make sense. So, gosh, aside from getting killed, but I'm just saying, like, there had been a lot going on in his life around this time, making him feel that difficulty. And I just wonder about the people around him, like wonder what they were reporting, what they were seeing.
Yeah, sometimes with this, you can also see like a needing to change course. Like if you're not on your quote path, it's a time to shift gears. To things will kind of happen that'll kind of force it to
could be where you need to be, right? So this could, I'm speculating, but could be like he could be in a position, you like you say, we're not looking at a natural politician here.
No.
I wonder at this point if he's like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is not the job for me. We know Robert Kennedy ran a lot of the show behind the scenes too,
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense with his chart that he would be the one to do. Because this one looks like he had other interests, other things he wanted to do. And
now, what would a loaded 8th house interest be? Psychic abilities, ghost hunting, extracurricular love life. Not for everybody. So don't.
Yeah. And I'm not shit talking. I mean, I'm not judging either. I'm really not. Whatever anybody wants. But this guy did not. Politics.
It was documented that he had a very active love life outside of his marriage. I'm sorry. It's not a secret anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems like he, that was, And even that, even though he's got like Saturn in the 10th, but it's in Cancer. So it's not like, I don't know. It's just not, it's not authority the way that.
You got Saturn in a detriment right there with Neptune. Not looking like a leader.
That's what I was going to say, a facade perhaps of being able to put that on,
Now, I'm really not trying to shit talk the man. I mean, he was very loved at the time, he was. I'm not either, but it's very interesting to me because of how loved he was. And I'm not saying that he didn't deserve to be, but how loved he was, how people revere him. This man was not a politician. I think the man people loved was not the real guy. I think it's okay to say that.
Yeah. At this point, I think
in love with an image, and at the time, maybe America needed that image, and it's okay. But it's just interesting to bring up. Hey, what was seen? A lot of other things going on behind the scenes.
Yes. Well, I think that's pretty good. I think we covered everything.
I will say one thing, and this isn't for everybody. So if you had Uranus in the 4th house, don't let this scare you. Because I've seen people live to old age with that placement. But I've also seen people who die unexpectedly with that placement of Uranus in the 4th house too. I'm going from memory, but I think Buddy Holly has that as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it can mean a lot of different things, but I've seen that before.
It's also interesting that like when he was shot, you've got the ascendant, you've got the conjunct that Uranus. It's kind of interesting too.
You got that you got Saturn coming up to a conjunction. You got the moon. The moon is still a few degrees away, but pretty close. That moon is a magnifier for Saturn there. So kind of maybe igniting that. But again, don't be scared if you have Uranus in the 4th house. Does not mean you're gonna. It can mean you move a lot when you're younger.
Yeah.
It can mean you have a parent that is in and out of the home. It can mean a whole lot of things.
Yeah, but that is an interesting. That is an interesting correlation. That you've noticed. Let me go ahead and.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, we are also going to be talking about RFK stuff. So make sure I'll be uploading this on the same day that Brandy uploads the RFK one. So do go check out her channel, Brandy Burrow Astrology, so that you can check it out too. And if you want to share where you can be found, I know I just said that, but
Brandy Burrow Astrology on Instagram, brandyburrowastrology.com. And yeah, give Ellie a like and a subscribe. Let us know you're enjoying these things.
Yes, do the same for Brandy as well. Oh, and we mentioned
where do we find you, Ellie? Because I'll eventually put this on my channel.
Okay. Oh, you can find me at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram, saturnseason.com. It's my website, and on YouTube at Let's F with Astrology. And if anybody has any, we mentioned this before in another video. If anybody has any kind of a loved one that has passed or is missing, you want clarity on this, what have you, Brandy and I are more than happy to take a look at the astrology behind it. This is not for YouTube. This is not a video this isn't for anybody to see. This would be like you reaching out to us, and it would be a private consultation. So if anybody has anything like that and they want us to take a look, you can reach out to either one of us. I'll put below how you can contact us through email.
Yeah, if you need another avenue, another tool to use, get some answers, please reach out.
Yeah. And I guess we'll go ahead and head off, but I'll see all of y'all later. Thank you for being here.